What's going on, guys? Kai here. Today we're looking at Rimuru. We're checking out their abilities, as well as I'm going to show you some gameplay and talk about who they work with. Are they worth summoning for? Let's get into it. So first we check out their basic. Now we check out their basic because some fairies have ones that do things on basic, like right here, Mistletoe, that heals you based off of the damage she deals. Rimuru does not do anything special. It is just a high multiplier on basic attack. Now also has this passive and their active work together very, very well. When we take a look, when any damage dealt by Rimuru hits an enemy, that includes their basic attack. So this is effectively kind of a basic type thing. 3% chance for an enemy to get a debuff. It could be any of these 5 things. The debuff will be seen as a buff. Now that wording is going to be important because there might be a bug going in right here that we'll talk about in a minute. And as we see down here, the chances go up to 5% at 5% at level 8, but there's also a big jump at level 5, which is probably unlocked at 13 star, which is 3 red, which is a good stopping point right there. It's going to be 4% chance to do it, but the duration is going to be 5 seconds, which is, 30-something percent boost, 33 to 40% boost in duration, which is very, very nice. All these things are good. Minus attack, minus defense, minus crit, minus block, minus movement speed. And then when we look at the active, deals damage when the skill hits an enemy, devours the target's buff for 6 seconds. Now remember, right here on passive it says the debuff effect added by the skill will be seen as a buff. That sounds like King of Gluttony would eat the corruption effect that you're putting on them. We will see how that turns out in the gameplay momentarily. For each buff devoured, Master, which is you, gets a non-repetitive random buff. So there's 6 of them. So if you eat 6, you will get everything. It's not 15% crit damage, you get it 3 times. No. It has to be a different one. Now this one gets really, really good as you level it. As we see right here, duration of the buff is 6 seconds at level 2, which is already a huge deal because at 4 seconds to 6 seconds, 50% increase. But what's going to be really big is here at level 5, while releasing, the master gets 30% defense for 3 seconds, which, as we'll see, is going to be a huge buff. As well as it can also give HP steal from damage, which is huge, damage receive reduction, immunity control. So Master getting defense is going to be very, very good for tanky builds in themselves, as well as classes that care about their defenses. That's going to be things like Mechanician and Berserker are the 2 main ones that come to mind. There's a few others that care about defense very, very slightly, but that's something to think about when you're doing this. But down here at level 8, the buff will last for 9 seconds, and this is huge right here. You get 2 buffs per one that you eat, so they only need 3 buffs to get all 6. Now let's check out some actual gameplay with them. Alright, over here I challenged a buddy here to a duel, and I was looking for a buff to land up here. That did not work out, so we're just doing basics, seeing how often it happens. Then I tried against a regular boss to do the same thing. I could not get it to actually show the buff / debuff there at all. But when we go over here to Miasma, I challenged the same guy here, and we made a deal. So when he basic attacks me back, he's telling me that he got one of the random debuffs. Remember, this is a 4% chance for my particular one. As you see, I only have the one fairy on, so whatever happens, we know it was her. I do one basic attack, which makes her target that enemy, and then it makes them, Rimuru, target that enemy, and then now Rimuru will keep doing the basic. Pretty average speed for basic attack. He attacked me back, letting me know, and then as you see, I used that attack that should have ate the thing and gave me a buff, which it did not. To show you, from their point of view, they got the minus attack, and then in a different attempt, they got the minus block. Now, I didn't upload it here, I don't see, but there was another one in Miasma where they were telling me, okay, I'll use the heal skill from Priest to let you know that I have the debuff. Now that ended up with me getting a buff in return because I ate the Priest buff itself. Let's jump back into the game and show you what I'm talking about. So this is the skill that they use right here. Heals and then regenerate 5% max HP every 5 seconds for 12 seconds. But this is not what I ate. I got rid of the Priest buff itself. When releasing Priest skill, gain a shield. This shield is a huge thing right here. But I only got the one buff. So you cannot eat things like this regenerate. It's not seen as a buff. But the shield from Priest is seen as a buff. Now, there's a couple things here. I told everyone that I had to wait till today to release the video because I wanted to test last night if Guild Boss worked this way. Guild Boss does not allow you to eat the debuffs. I sent a ticket to see, because of the wording as we talked about with Rimuru, saying this is seen as a buff. If this just means you can find it in the buff bar, or if you are supposed to be able to eat it with gluttony. That would make a lot of sense to me, make it work with itself. But this is already a very powerful skill, as we see with Priest, obviously. I've done some testing, and it does work with the Ranger's Never Miss. You can eat this. I am unsure if you are eating both the crit rate and crit damage, or just the crit rate. But you are able to eat this buff. The defense buff over here from Blood Restraint, you're able to eat the defense buff, but they will still keep dealing the AoE damage and healing based on damage, but you will eat their plus 20% defense buff. So it's kind of wonky, the things that work or don't work. You're going to have to test it yourself. If I get a response on it, if Gluttony is supposed to work that way or not, I will put it down below, responding to my pinned comment asking how you feel about Rimuru. Now, what's really awesome is when we go to Rimuru herself, when we go to up her, Ascension, Holy, Rimuru. So on the right there, the purple crystals right here, this is going to be the same crystals that we get for Milim. So I recommend holding off, at least for right now, until we try out Milim as well. And then between them, you can use copies to go for whichever one you want between the two, which is going to be very, very great. Next week, I'm going to have one for Diablo and one for Milim. Once I'm able to get a couple copies of each of them, and then show them off to you so you can decide if you want to summon them or not. What's important is what works with Rimuru, right? Where does she work? So she can be a nice counter in some PvP scenarios. I'm assuming It's going to work against some bosses. It does not work against guild boss, as I said. He doesn't generally buff himself on his buff bar. He tells you effects that he's doing. They are not innately buffs. But what is very, very interesting is there are some other fairies that we look on the other side of Rimuru, right? So her thing is that they get buffs, you eat the buffs, but that innately gives you a buff. Now, you getting a buff, if we look at something like Gypsophilia, who extends the duration of buffs by herself, now we're looking at something very, very decent going on here, right? Eating their buffs and giving yourself buffs, and then extending the duration of these big buffs. Remember, we have things like plus crit damage, things like immune to CC effects, which is always going to be good, but it's going to require a specific setup. So this would work very well in something like a Shrine Peak, where you can keep your buffs going pretty much indefinitely, especially with something like Marksman that does the Never Miss. Never Miss Gypsophilia is a pretty well-known combo at this point, to always have, at least if you have a high Gypsophilia, you have 100% uptime on your Never Miss, as long as you're using it when it's up, and then landing Gypsophilia, because she only gives you that duration bonus if she hits an enemy, so you have to be careful that you're actually hitting. But this also works when you're doing a full holy team, because you get the pierce rate from Sakura, which can also be extended with Gypsophilia. And let's not forget, right now we have 7 holy fairies in the game right now. Once Melum hits next week, we will have 8, which means when we go to Formation Holy, we can go all the way to level 8 bonus, which is massive. Let me know down below what you guys think about the new Holy Fairy,